People expected anger. What they got instead was grief. When Trevor Engelson finally speaks, not through a lawyer's carefully worded statement, not through a tabloid exclusive dripping with choreographed outrage, the first thing that registers is how quiet he sounds. Not defeated, not bitter, quiet in the way that only comes from someone who has spent years deciding exactly what is and isn't worth saying. Hollywood had been waiting for this. The entertainment industry, which thrives on the currency of other people's pain, had spent years composing the headline it assumed was coming. The betrayed producer, the man she left behind, the humiliation of Trevor Engelson. It would have been a content feast. He didn't give them the feast. What he gave them instead was something more honest, and because of that, more devastating. Not to Meghan, to the audience itself. Because what Trevor reveals about his marriage isn't a story about a villain and a victim. It's a story about two people who were never actually in the same relationship, and how one of them spent years not realizing it. His jaw tightens slightly before he speaks. His hands rest on the table. Still, deliberate. A man who has rehearsed stillness. There are no tears. There is no theater. There is only this. A person who loved someone completely and discovered, far too late, that completeness was never the point. I'm not interested in hurting anyone, he says. Then he pauses. I'm just done pretending I wasn't hurt. Before we go deeper into what this really means, make sure you subscribe, because what comes next will completely change how you understand everything that followed. Los Angeles does something specific to young ambition. It glamorizes the struggle. It turns cheap apartments and skipped lunches and borrowed suits into mythology, as long as you eventually make it. And in the early days, before the world knew Meghan Markle as anything other than an actress grinding through the lower tiers of Hollywood, that mythology was the only currency she and Trevor had. Trevor Engelson is lean and dark-haired, with the kind of face that belongs to someone who works quietly behind something larger than himself, and that was always the shape of his personality. A film producer who believed in other people's stories. A man who measured success not in headlines but in projects that reached people. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't performing. Meghan Markle, even then, was performing. Not dishonestly, that distinction matters, but constantly. She arrived at every room like she was already considering how to be remembered in it. They met in 2004. They moved in circles that overlapped at the edges of the entertainment industry, where the almost successful people gathered and told each other it was only a matter of time. Trevor believed that about Meghan instinctively. He was, from the beginning, her most committed audience. He drove her to auditions. He talked her through the rejections, and there were many. The years between trying and landing were long and unglamorous and full of the kind of small humiliations the industry never stopped serving. He paid for dinners when her residuals were thin. He showed up. That was how Trevor loved. Through presence. Through the accumulation of ordinary, unremarkable acts of being there. And for a while she was there too. Two people in a small apartment, sharing takeout containers and Hollywood anxiety, building something that felt like a future. The first red flag doesn't always look toxic. Sometimes it looks ambitious. At a dinner party in 2006, a mutual friend leans over to Trevor and says something offhand. Something about how Meghan seems to know every powerful person in the room within 20 minutes of arriving. Trevor smiles. He thinks it is a compliment. He is proud of her. He doesn't notice, not yet, that he isn't in the sentence. There is a specific expression that appears on someone's face when they are physically present but mentally elsewhere. The eyes move at a frequency that doesn't match the conversation. The smile arrives a half-beat late, calibrated rather than spontaneous. The body stays while the attention leaves. Trevor begins noticing this expression at industry events somewhere around 2008. He is mid-sentence, about a project he is developing, something he is genuinely excited about, and Meghan's eyes move over his shoulder. Not dramatically, just a scan. A quick assessment of who else is in the room, who has arrived since they entered, whether the architecture of the gathering has shifted in any useful direction. He stops talking. She doesn't notice immediately. When she does, she refocuses, squeezes his arm, says something warm. She is good at warmth when it is required. Trevor accepts it, but the pattern is there now. He has seen it once, which means he will see it everywhere. At premieres, her body turns toward him and her face turns toward photographers. At dinners, she engineers seating arrangements with the precision of someone who understands that proximity to the right person is a form of currency. At parties, she has a way of making every person she speaks to feel like the only person in the room, for exactly as long as it takes to establish a connection, and then moving on, leaving the previous person warmed and slightly confused. Trevor watches this and tells himself it is ambition. He believes this for longer than he should. Love has a way of making intelligent people negotiate against their own dignity. He proposes in 2010. She says yes. They marry in 2011, in a ceremony in Jamaica surrounded by friends. Trevor beaming with the uncomplicated happiness of a man who believes he has arrived somewhere permanent. He hasn't, but he doesn't know that yet. A single television audition changes everything. One yes when so many have been no. The call comes in 2011. Meghan Markle has been cast in Suits as Rachel Zane, a paralegal at a high-powered New York firm, sharp, ambitious, beautiful. The kind of character that exists at the intersection of competence and desire. The character is not a coincidence. It is, in several meaningful ways, a projection. Overnight, the texture of everything changes. Trevor watches his wife become famous and tells himself he is happy. He is happy. The distinction between happiness and completeness is one he doesn't yet have the language for. The invitations multiply. The events become glossier. The people in the room are no longer the almost successful. They are the arrived, the established, the firmly positioned. Meghan moves through these rooms differently now. Not scanning from the outside, but moving through as someone who belongs, someone who is sought. The dynamic inverts. Trevor remains who he has always been. Warm, grounded, quietly proud. But pride is not the same as participation. He begins to notice, gradually the way you notice a temperature dropping, that the emotional ratio in their relationship is shifting. The more publicly validated Meghan becomes, the less privately present she seems. As if the two things are in competition. Every degree of warmth she receives from the world outside is 1 degree less available at home. He tells himself this is the natural consequence of success. That she is tired. That the schedule is punishing. He finds explanations that protect the version of events he prefers. This is how modern power quietly changes relationships. Not through betrayal first. Through replacement. Emotional replacement. The slow substitution of a partner for an audience, until the partner doesn't realize he has become one of the viewers. One night after an industry event. A glossy, congratulatory evening where Meghan is photographed and praised and introduced to people whose names Trevor only half recognizes. He waits near the exit while she finishes a conversation. He waits for 37 minutes. She doesn't look for him once. That moment will stay with him for a long time. The event is somewhere in West Hollywood. Rooftop. The kind of venue designed to make everyone inside feel elevated, literally and otherwise. Candles on tables that cost more than Trevor's first car. A photographer working the room like a hummingbird. Stopping, hovering, moving on. Meghan is spectacular. That is not a complicated observation. She has learned, by this point, how to occupy space in a way that makes every eye in the room find her organically. Not through loudness, but through a kind of magnetic intentionality. She is always slightly turned toward the best light. She always seems to have just arrived at exactly the right moment. Trevor stands near the bar. He holds a drink he doesn't particularly want. He speaks to people he barely knows about things he can't later recall. The professional smile. The appropriate laugh. He is performing being fine, and the performance is convincing enough that no one looks twice. But inside, something is clarifying. He watches his wife work the room, and that is the word that arrives in his mind unbidden and insistently. Work. Not enjoy. Not share. Work. She moves with the focused purpose of someone running a very long play, and he is beginning to understand, with a coldness that has nothing to do with the night air, that the play didn't include a part for him past a certain act. He is not angry. That is the part that will confuse him most when he looks back. He is not angry. He is something quieter and more corrosive than anger. He is invisible. not to strangers. Strangers are polite, peripherally curious about who he is, content to learn he is in production, and then shift their attention back to the room's more interesting gravitational fields. Invisible to her, there is a specific kind of cruelty that doesn't require intent. The cruelest abandonment often happens while the relationship still technically exists, while the paperwork is current, while the apartment is shared, while the word marriage is still in use. It happens in small erosions, in the 37th minute of waiting, in the eyes that move over your shoulder, in the conversation that ends because someone more useful has arrived. Trevor drives home alone that night. Meghan comes back later. She is in good spirits. She tells him about the connections she made, the people she spoke to, the opportunities gestating. He listens. He doesn't say what he is thinking. He doesn't have the words for it yet. Only the feeling. Heavy, precise, and settling somewhere in his chest like something that has found its permanent address. The collapse doesn't announce itself. That is the thing no one tells you. It doesn't arrive with a confrontation or a revelation or a single devastating sentence. It arrives the way fog arrives, gradually, then completely until you look up and can no longer see the shape of what you thought you were building. Texts take longer to be returned, then longer still. Trevor finds himself rereading his own messages, looking for something he said wrong, something that justified the silence, because the alternative, that nothing is wrong and this is simply how things are now, is too large to face directly. Conversations become transactional. She tells him what she needs. He provides it. He tells her something real, something vulnerable, the kind of offering that intimacy requires, and it lands in a space that doesn't quite hold it. She is present. She is not there. Schedules diverge. Days pass in the same apartment where they are, technically, together, and those days accumulate into something that resembles a marriage the way a photograph resembles a person. Trevor tries harder. This is what people who love deeply do when love becomes one-directional. They compensate. They fill the gaps with their own effort. They love with twice the intensity in hopes that the average will feel like balance. It doesn't feel like balance. No one teaches people how to recognize emotional relocation. The moment when someone you love has quietly moved the center of their life to a place that doesn't include you, while leaving enough of themselves behind that you spend months convincing yourself you are wrong. He brings her coffee the way she takes it. He remembers the details, the small, invisible details that are how he has always expressed that he sees her. He rearranges his schedule to be home when she is home. He makes himself available in every way he knows how. She is kind. She is appreciative in the surface way that good manners require. And she is somewhere else entirely. Trevor holds onto honesty like a life raft. He believes, with the stubbornness of someone who has never been dishonest about anything important, that if he simply says what is true, if he finds the right words for what is happening between them, they can find their way back. He requests the conversation. She agrees. He will not speak about what was said in that room. He has never spoken about it. But whatever happened in that conversation, the Trevor who walks out of it understands something he didn't understand going in. There is nothing left to save. The divorce is finalized in 2013. 2 years of marriage. 2 years that, from the outside, look like a story with a neat ending. Hollywood couple grows apart under the pressure of unequal success. It's a familiar narrative. The industry has 1,000 versions of it. People nod when they hear it. Trevor doesn't nod. He doesn't do much of anything public. He doesn't call journalists. He doesn't show up at events wearing his pain like a second suit. He disappears in the way that private people do when they need to bleed somewhere no one can watch. Quietly, completely, without making it anyone else's business. But in private, something cracks. It isn't losing Meghan precisely that breaks him. The version of Meghan he had loved most was already gone by the time the paperwork arrived. Had been gone, he would later understand, for longer than he knew. What breaks him is something more fundamental than the loss of one person. It is the loss of belief. Not belief in her, belief in himself. His capacity to read a situation. His judgment about what was real. His confidence that the love he gave was the love that was received. He had loved with everything available to him. Completely, generously, without reservation. And somewhere in the machinery of that devotion, He had missed the fact that what he was building was not a partnership but a supporting role in someone else's ascent. The question that circles him in the months after, the one that has no clean answer, the one that visits at the precise hour of 3 in the morning when defenses are down, is not why did she leave? He knows why she left. The question is, was he ever loved? Or was he useful for exactly the duration of his usefulness, and mistook one for the other? That question is a different species of pain than heartbreak. Heartbreak is losing something you had. This is the retroactive unmaking of something you thought you had. He doesn't sleep well. He eats inconsistently. His work, which has always been his grounding, becomes the rope he grabs when everything else has no traction. He throws himself at projects with the focused desperation of a man trying to rebuild himself inside the only structure he still trusts. Hollywood expects a response. A tell-all. A carefully placed source talking about the real story. A headline that would make the industry feel like balance had been restored. A public person publicly humiliated, and a wronged party publicly vindicated. Trevor doesn't give them that. He closes the door. He disappears. And somehow, in disappearing, he does something more powerful than anything a headline could have achieved. The silence is strategic in the way that no one, including Trevor, initially understands it to be. He turns down the book offers. There are several. Publishers sense a market for his account, and the figures attached to some proposals are not insignificant. He turns them down without extended deliberation. He doesn't call podcast hosts. He doesn't reach out to documentary makers. He doesn't take the meeting with the journalist who covers the royal beat with the particular sharpness that would have guaranteed placement. He simply does not speak. Hollywood interprets this as shock initially, then as strategic patience. Surely he is waiting for the right moment, the right platform, the right financial structure for his pain. The industry knows that grief, properly packaged and timed, can be enormously valuable. But Trevor is not timing anything. He is simply a man who has decided that the story of his life is his. Not a network's, not a publisher's, not a royal correspondent's. Not every wound needs a performance. This sentence, when he eventually says something close to it, lands in a culture that has become fluent in performed pain. A culture where processing heartbreak on camera has become its own genre, where the vocabulary of therapy has been absorbed by personal branding, where vulnerability and content strategy have become so intertwined that it is increasingly difficult to locate the seam. Trevor stands entirely outside this system, by choice, by temperament, by a deep-rooted understanding that some things, the real things, the things that actually happened, are diminished by being turned into entertainment. Years pass. He works. He rebuilds. And then, slowly, the world starts looking at him differently. Not because he has said anything, but because someone else has said a great deal. The Oprah interview airs in March 2021. Then the Netflix documentary. Then the memoir. Then the media cycle that follows each, spiraling and contradicting and generating its own heat. The world is trying to decide what to believe about Meghan Markle, and in the middle of that process, without anyone quite planning it, they start asking a different question. What did Trevor escape? It happens gradually. Cultural perception is not a lever you pull, it is a tide. And as the public narrative about Meghan becomes more complicated, more layered, more contested, the shape of Trevor's silence begins to look different. Less like shock, less like strategic patience. More like a man who understood something early that took the rest of the world years to formulate. He hadn't spoken. He hadn't needed to. Every time a story emerged about professional friction, every time an allegation surfaced about how she treated people who had once been useful and then weren't, every time a former ally went quiet or a working relationship ended abruptly, or someone who had been publicly celebrated became publicly absent, people started consulting the Trevor Engelson archive. An archive that contains nothing, not one word. The silence, which had once seemed like the response of a wounded man, now looks like the conclusion of someone who had done his accounting early. People aren't just analyzing Meghan anymore. They are analyzing modern ambition itself. The performance of authenticity. The careful curation of a life as a brand. The question of what is left when the cameras stop and the publicist goes home. Trevor becomes, without intending to, a symbol. Not a victimhood. He would hate that reading. but of a different kind of success. The success of not being destroyed by something that easily could have.